What did you say? Asked Dad, distracted by the overtaking truck. I asked how much did the thief or the thieves steal? If I got it all right, they took 207 euro and 45 cents. Usually I wouldn't have counted anything before the end of the month, but the theft was kind of obvious this time. I'd forgotten to put away an envelope with donation and left it on the table in the hallway. For an hour at most, Janine and I'd gone to the supermarket down the road, and when we came back, most of the envelope's content was missing. I remember it was a big donation, two 50 euro notes. Someone had colored the zeros with a green and red pencil, respectively. So, you're saying that the thief didn't take all the money, even though he could have? I wanted to know, and probably for the first time showed genuine interest in my dad's work that was usually a little trite and uninspiring for an 8-year-old girl like me. That's exactly it. My dad was shaking his head. That's the thing I can't wrap my head around. Whoever it is, they only ever take a small portion of the money that's actually there, and it's always happening during any short time frame that I and Janine aren't in the house. Did you forget to close the door? I asked, and felt just a little like a police commissioner interviewing an important witness. No, said my dad, I didn't. Otherwise, the whole thing would be much easier. But no, the door was closed with no sign of somebody breaking in. In that case, I could have already called the police. The way it is, I could have still somehow lost the notes myself. Same with any other money I lost over the past month. Especially in the weeks before Christmas, my thoughts are everywhere, but with the thing I'm doing right now, you know how scatterbrained I get. Well, and I still don't have any tangible proof that it was an actual theft and not just thoughtlessness on my side. Just yesterday, I learned something that aggravates the situation just a little more. I was having a chat with the previous pastor, Mrs. Adler, and she casually mentioned that she lost the keys to the parsonage in the snow. She never changed the locks because she just assumed they'd been swept away into the Mitchell by a snow removal vehicle. But now, after 2 years, she'd started to doubt her own theory and felt like the least she could do was to tell me. And now, are you going to change the locks? I looked expectantly at my dad. Sure, I have considered it, but on the other side, it would make the perfect opportunity to catch the thief red-handed should he try to use the key again. But if the burglar really has the key, he could break into the house while we are still inside of it. I brought up the obvious concern. Well, yes, my dad nodded and said to himself, oh, I almost missed a slip road here before continuing. There's a very real chance that someone could just walk into the house at any time of the day. At least you won't be able to complain about the holidays not being exciting enough. Though every theft I can think of happened while I and Janine went out of the house for a few minutes. It almost feels like someone is watching us. Meaning, the most likely culprit is one of your neighbors. There we are, said my dad, and put an end to our conversation about the burglaries at the parsonage, completely ignoring my last comment. Most likely because we could already see Kai and Louise standing at the side of the road, and with them a not inconsiderable amount of backpacks and suitcases. Kai had apparently decided to visit Louise's grandmother, so that we only had to search one address. Oh my, sighed Dad. How are we supposed to get all of this into the car? He scratched his head, uprooting the few hairs he had left, and then, naturally, managed to fit every single piece of baggage anyway. The space in front of Bubblegum was filled up just like the space next to him, leaving barely any room for him to look out of the window. He wasn't bothered too much, as he still had an amazing view out of the front window. The back of the car was stacked so high that we could turn our heads all we wanted and would still be unable to see anything but the various bags and backpacks around us. Not that we minded the circumstance any more than necessary, we spent most of the car ride chatting and playing word games. One time we started making up small riddles for each other. Okay, tell me whether the following sentence is right or wrong. Berlin starts with a B and ends with an E. Kai and Louise instantly started laughing and shaking their heads. It's wrong, obviously. Berlin ends with an N. And then it was my turn to laugh because I said, except it actually is right. And does start with an E. Both of them looked a little perplexed. First at me and then at each other, and before anyone knew, all three of us were laughing. An hour later, we started playing a game called Who Am I? One person had to think of one thing or a person or an animal another person became for the span of the game. And that person had to ask questions to find out what they were that the first person was only allowed to answer with either yes or no. Am I an animal? No. Am I a person? No. Am I an object? Yes. That yes came out a little hesitantly, giving the asker a clue that it wouldn't be as simple as just an object. And slowly Louise figured out that she was in fact a letter. And obviously she asked me every letter from A to Z and the three umlauts for good measure, and I had the time of my life saying no 29 times until Louise was at the verge of a nervous breakdown because I'd explicitly said that she was a German letter. She was desolate and terribly mad at me because I'd made a fool of her until I sat up to victoriously announce, "You're the SZ." And we all started groaning because she could have really thought of that herself. Soon after we'd tired of playing games, we started listening to audiobook CDs. My dad fancied recording them himself, mostly stories that he'd written himself. And while he had quite a talent for coming up with all sorts of adventurous tales, his readings of them were of frankly poor quality. He spoke with a strange intonation, but with the constant humming of the car actually made it kind of pleasant to listen to. And as any other group of 8-year-olds would, we asked every 30 minutes, when are we finally in Metro? And even though the car ride seemed to stretch on endlessly, we came closer to our destination with every passing minute.